The energy of revenge. This is something that I can definitely relate to. This is something that I have had to work through, and something that has greatly affected my mental health, my efficiency, my ability to think clearly, my ability to stay focused, to stay on track. What do you do with this energy? How can you identify when you're in that energy? At times, I've come into contact with people, with experiences that have left a bad taste in my mouth, or left me in a position in which I had to process an emotion that I did not feel I wanted to process. It was necessary that I processed the emotion because it left me feeling angry, frustrated. I could describe it as anxiety. Triggered, that's really what the word is, triggered. When I find myself in that position with people that I perceive do not deserve my focus and attention, it adds on to the frustration. So there's layers of emotions that I have to process, and being a person who seeks to be in alignment, to stay in alignment. Now, a little side note, being in alignment does not necessarily mean that you're always going to be smooth, coasting, sailing, whatever. Sometimes being in alignment means you have to be in a negative vibration. But the idea is to be able to navigate that in a way that is conducive for your growth, for what you would like to experience. Being a person who enjoys life, who enjoys being in a state of tranquility, and who puts in effort, work, diligently to be in this state of being. When something that is very apparently to me rude, crude, and socially unacceptable, I am even more angry at that. And depending on the situation, I get into this energy of wanting revenge. I want to rip the flowers out the garden. I want to break the windows. Right? These are the feeling states. Rage. Like feeling enraged, genuinely wanting to. My feelings are deep, so I get really angry. I have the capability of being extremely angry. And I've had to work through that emotion. I've had to be extremely diligent with that emotion. That is partially why I have gone down this path of wellness, is because Growing up, I found myself being incredibly angry and not knowing how to deal with it, to the point where I became sick mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually ill. This is also playing into why I like being in solitude, why I avoid or I refrain, I opt out of experiences that do not align with my values, that do not align with what I perceive to be and what I experience as respectable. But every so often, I come into contact with an energy that I simply do not respect, I simply do not appreciate, and I get into this feeling of vengeance. Being able to acknowledge that, first and foremost, is essential so that you can allow that to process and to just be aware. You know, being aware is such a huge step. Often we'll underplay just simply becoming aware of something. And once we become aware, it's like you can get into this energy of, oh man, I've been held back for so long. I wasn't able to experience all these wonderful things because I wasn't aware of that until now. Oh no, I've wasted my life. Realize that becoming aware is such a wonderful experience. Becoming aware of something that you were not aware of before is like a beautiful, majestic stride in the right direction. It's worth celebrating. It's just as good as attaining, that whatever thing that you were trying to attain. It is the most essential thing. Congratulations for becoming aware at whatever juncture, Whether it had been 10 years ago or 5 years in the future. Celebrate those moments where you become aware of things. In this case, we're talking about vengeance. Becoming aware of your relationship to it, how it's played into your life experience, and how to navigate that, really, ultimately. I speak from experience. I'm not a therapist or anything like that. I would love for you to reflect on this. Have you ever felt that way? Have you ever felt like getting back at somebody? What level have you experienced that? Are you able to acknowledge what level you have taken that feeling? And if it's something that you've suppressed, are you able to allow it to surface in this moment as you observe this video and me speaking on this? How far have you played with this energy within yourself? And I already said, I gave some examples. Quite literally my experience of, wanting to rip flowers out of the garden, wanting to break windows. I've taken it all the way. I've been extremely angry and having to navigate and process this feeling. In the moment, when I have this feeling, as a being who has worked on self-regulating emotions, it is so frustrating to feel emotionally charged by something that you feel does not deserve your presence, your love. I can describe it as infuriating. So just relishing in this awareness. It's okay to have that experience, and to a certain degree, I would say it's pretty natural to have these feelings. Some people will be in a position in which they love that. They have no intentions of coming out of that. And if you happen to be that person and you're watching this, that's fine too. You be as you are. It has taken me a lot of active participation in this regulation for me to get to that point, and sometimes I don't move past it. I'm still processing an experience that I had a couple weeks ago. Just like every emotion, I don't know, I wouldn't say revenge is an emotion as much as it is.
All they do is play with y'all emotions.
They just play with y'all emotions. Consequences of experiencing an emotion. And usually these emotions have a lot of layers to it, right? It's like a lot of things are at play emotionally, at least for myself, to get to that point. When you feel as though you didn't deserve to be treated in a particular way, or you feel misunderstood, or you feel XYZ. You know, you might be experiencing all these other things in these other areas. And this has come up for me so many times. This topic of vengeance, revenge. Sometimes I reflect, like, what do I want to talk about in my next video, right? And I just allow for the first thing to come to mind to just... And the first thing that came to me was revenge, vengeance. In the heat of a moment, there may be a resistance to being emotionally charged by something or by someone that you perceive does not deserve your energy. That resistance to that emotional charge that you're experiencing from the cause adds an extra layer. And it's natural. This is all, it's like a sweep. It's a sweep. And keep in mind that there's not a need to solve a problem. You know, I'm speaking on this as to just express my experience again. I'm not trying to solve a problem here. It is simply an experience that I've had over and over and over again. And I've dealt with it, this experience, this wave, in different ways, you know, trial and error. And oftentimes from a position of ignorance, from a lack of awareness, thus perpetuating the experience. I had to be okay with this part of myself that experiences that level, that is capable of that level of destruction. And even for myself, this is not the case for everybody, but for myself, who would be willing to actually act on it? How does that affect your mental health?
2 steps ahead.
What are the consequences of that, of acting on that? Whether you continuously play it over in your head and act on it mentally, right? There's the words that you speak. You can be in silence, but if it's playing in your head, what is the difference? You know what the difference is. Being mindful of that. You can act in a vengeful way mentally. And if it's not manifesting physically, because you're not actually gonna, you know, go beat the shit out of someone, maybe you've moved past that point. Perhaps you can conjure up ways in which that might manifest in different areas of your life, or even just in life, considering our connectivity to everything. Insofar as you are experiencing that and are aware of that. And something that helps me shift out of this space of vengeance, mental revenge, is becoming aware of the consequences, how that is hurting me. I'm going to speak from the perspective as somebody who values accelerating and creating wonderful life experiences, exponential growth. When my mind is clouded with negative experiences, with people who don't deserve my energy, I am unable to focus on what I'm supposed to be doing right off the bat. Or that energy is leaking into all these areas unnecessarily. What to do about that? What has worked for me? Questioning why this might be so triggering. What is it about this experience that makes me feel so vengeful? How can I allow myself to process that experience and also let it go. Learning when you are processing an emotion, right? You're assessing a situation as to allow yourself to move on is one thing. Being able to differentiate that experience from ruminating on it when it becomes festering within you, when it starts to store itself in your body, your mind, things like that, is a distinction that has to be made and something that you can work on continuously. There's depths in which you can have this experience where you're becoming that observer. You're observing this aspect, your ability to distinguish between those things. And I would like to just be extremely transparent with you all based off of my most recent occurrence. This experience, where in which I was feeling those vengeful feelings, triggered me, made me so upset to the point where I felt, I had to cry. I had to. Like, I felt it coming, and I could swallow it. But I know what that does to me. It's like swallowing negative energy that needs to come out. There's a reason why we have the function of crying. It's okay to do that if you have to. I don't like crying. I really don't like crying. And I definitely don't like crying in front of people, and I don't like telling people. I don't. It feels uncomfortable. I have my own relationship to that. But this experience had me feeling like it was either I destroy or I cry. And I realized, because I saw the flowers, I was like, well, you know, the window's already broken, so somebody already took care of that. But here are these beautiful flowers. I could rip them apart. And then I saw it. The flower looked at me, and it was just so beautiful and sentient. And I was like, oh, great. Like, I came into this realization like, oh, great. I have to process this. I have to sit here with this emotion. I have to feel it. There's so much value in allowing yourself to fully feel your emotions, to be okay with the way that you feel, and to question these things, to spend some time reflecting on how you relate to this part of yourself, to become aware of how much this avoiding this feeling or rejecting this part of yourself truly plays in to depression, the global epidemic depression. Or if you just want to zero it down to you, how it affects you and your mental health. This video was way longer than I intended, but I appreciate you for watching.
I'm gonna read you something. Okay, here I go. Overcoming anger. I make up my mind never more to wear anger on my face. I will not inject the poison of anger in the heart of my peace and thus kill my spiritual life. I will be angry only with anger and with nothing else. I cannot be angry with anyone because the good and the bad both are divine brethren born of my own divine Father. I will calm the wrath of others by the good example of my tranquility, especially when I see my others suffering from the delirium of anger. Teach me not to kindle anger, and thus devastate with the conflagration of wrath the green oasis of peace within me and in others. Teach me rather to extinguish anger with the torrents of my unceasing love. Heavenly Father, command the lake of my kindness ever to remain undisturbed by the storms of misery. There you go. I make myself happy. So